So you're gonna show where you stretch all those people? So you're gonna show us the dungeon?
I might try to show a move or two.
Yeah. I'll take some moves, sir.
Do you feel that?
Oh yes, sir. I don't feel my arms, sir. I can feel it.
Can you feel that, sir?
Oh yes, sir.
Red,
oh yeah,
rosy.
Yes, sir.
And by taking this arm back here,
no.
you just ease his hand in the position here. I got the power here to
stop it, sir. Stop.
You're listening to Hart Beat Radio.
This is Bob Johnson, coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the man of the hour, the man with the power, trainer, wrestler extraordinary, sure, booker, what can you say, my friend Bruce Hart.
It's a real honor and a pleasure for me to have a chance to talk to a guy that I've admired and heard so many great things about from so many guys that I had high respect for.
I'd like to introduce our regular co-host from Portland Wrestling, Mr. Matt Merz. Welcome, Matt, to Hart Beat Radio.
Always a pleasure to be here, Bob. I'm looking forward to tonight's show and talking with Dan the Beast Severn and Bruce Hart about Dan's career in mixed martial arts and in professional wrestling. Quite a fascinating career Mr. Severn had.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
and he almost kind of, encompassed the two ends of the spectrum with, the conventional, kind of old school shoot style wrestling, and then kind of pro, and he kind of transitioned into the UFC, and then, back to NWA. But
Dan, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
My dad was a huge fan of yours. He had high regard and respect for you, and he always said it was, the business needed more guys like you, and so he was definitely.
No, I was actually up at the house there, and sitting in the living room while they were setting up all the cameras and the sound and that, and the dungeon was a match that took place there with between Owen and Ken Shamrock, being a special guest referee. So it was kind of great just sitting up in the living room there, just listening to Dad just talk, tell stories.
You were the type of guy that he, back in the day, he kind of broke in or mentored a lot of those guys with amateur backgrounds, like the Luther Lindsays and the Gordienkos and the Bill Millers and the Gino Morellas and Dick Huttons and some of those guys. And so he always, that was, and his roots were the same. He had kind of broken in way the hell back with some old guy named Jack Taylor, who was Frank Gotch's main running mate back in the Farmer Burns days, and I think
wow,
they
that's
broke in.
That's some lineage right there. That's some phenomenal lineage.
Yeah, so my dad was, I think he got his first break in the business from that old Toots Mont, who was kind of broken in by Jack Taylor in, I think, 1908 or something like that, and so my dad's roots were kind of very kind of old school, and, and most of the old guys that my dad, kind of had in the territory back in the day were, everyone from the Luthezes to, he had guys like Bob Geigel and Gordienko and Dory Funk Sr. and even guys that most people didn't know that they were amateur-based, guys like Ricky Starr and some of them, that were, pretty legit. And most of the guys that broke in up here had to kind of, my dad used to refer to it like going through the three-headed dog at the gates of hell. They had to kind of go through my dad or Gordienko or Lindsay and some of those guys, before they ever got smartened up or were ever brought into the wrestling fraternity, And
I think your dad would appreciate what I have going on here in little old Coldwater, Michigan. I have a training facility that underneath one roof I have amateur wrestlers, I've got professional wrestlers, and I've got cage fighters all underneath the same roof. And they work out in different areas, but they're able to watch, and they see the hard work and dedication that each one has. And yet, especially now, you see so many athletes that are crossing over back and forth. They're a wrestler, they're a cage fighter or they're a cage fighter, and now they're a wrestler. Especially Brock Lesnar being involved in UFC. Other professionals. So it's really kind of unique how it's kind of gone full circle, and I think it's kind of like the theme right now of knowing that you can do both worlds.
I know that was kind of happening with folks like yourself and like Predator Don Fry. We're going over to Japan and we're competing in, kind of hybrid wrestling mixed martial arts matches back in the late 90s and early 2000s. What was that like back then?
Well, I mean, it was just a very, very strong style is what it was. I mean, if you didn't feel it, you did not sell it. So it really gave an illusion of a true fight. As the Americans or whatever other foreigners would come on into Japan, we would meet up and you'd work out for a couple of days in the dojo, just working on your techniques and stuff like this, and eventually you would get with whoever you're going to do your match with, and you went over it several times, make sure that it looked good and looked crisp. You want it to look real. And they even made the comment, if you don't feel it, you don't sell it. So it was definitely a very strong style, a very stiff style.
Were you familiar, Dan, with, I know my dad had a few of these Japanese guys that were into that kind of style, Hashimoto and...
Hashimoto, yep, actually that was one of the things that I had to be going on a card. Hashimoto had the NWA belt at the time and did not wish to relinquish it to any of the current rivals to the throne, and I had to be going over to Japan just not doing a tag team match. And somewhere in the midst of the flight, all I know is it went from a singles match, doing a tag team match. Now I'm in a singles match. Now I'm in with Hashimoto because he did not mind dropping the strap to me because he simply said that he goes Dan Severn he's a man with legitimate background with legitimate accomplishments, and that actually did made me feel good with me. He still spud me up there pretty good.
Yeah, I remember he kind of broke in here around the same time as this other Japanese guy named Hossie, and we had a couple of other Liger and them. They're all here at that same time, and they were primarily workers, but every now and then Hashimoto, I still have guys like Pillman and them kind of complaining that he was shooting under the guys at work and stuff like that, But yeah, I know that seemed to be prevalent with the Japanese guys, and quite a few of them most of them seem to have some legitimate amateur background,
Talking about guys with a legitimate background, Dan Severn is a 5th-degree black belt in judo, a 2nd-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, international master in sambo, has a MMA record of 101, 19, and 7. I just don't know. He was the original Sunkist kid, too, which is kind of an interesting factoid about Dan.
He probably has a better insight and overall perspective about, the whole business, encompassing, pro and UFC and
the professional wrestling world still makes me scratch my head a great deal. It's I really wonder about it at times. It's just I probably can't say enough colorful adjectives that would really make that would be that I could do any kind of justice. I tell a lot of people that it's probably the worst industry I've ever gotten myself involved with, but it has awakened a creativity and a business sense that has helped me out a great deal in the shoot world. And that's where, unique inside my training facility here, is that the cage fighters, the boxers, kickboxers, and MMA practitioners, they'll come in and they'll watch the wrestlers and they'll learn about that ring presence. They'll learn that how to tell a story by using the facial expression, their body language. Everything tells something about them, to whatever kind of interest music that they're using, to what they're wearing, how they're approaching that cage. So there's a great deal of psychology that a lot of your your mixed martial artists that can learn from it. So it's
well, let's kind of walk people through the Dan Severn career here, and talk about how you really got started and what your influences were to get into wrestling. Did you just stumble into it in high school, or how did you end up becoming, a two-time All-American at Arizona State by the time you got to college?
Well, I'll just give you some timetables here. I actually started my career in amateur wrestling back in 1969. That's when I first began in junior high, 7th grade to be exact. And then, I was trying to be a basketball player, but I absolutely sucked at basketball. I just did not have that ability to dribble a ball and look away and actually still have the ball underneath my hand against the defender. So basically, I sat on the pine or riding the bench is what I did a great deal. But a couple of my buddies who happened to be on the wrestling team, a big flu epidemic hit our little junior high, and they were missing quite a few wrestlers. And they said, "Hey, Dan, can you fill in a weight class for us tonight? Otherwise, we'd have to forfeit that match." And I thought, me being a strapping young man, a farm boy there, I thought, sure, I could show somebody a thing or two about this thing called wrestling. And I went out there, and basically I wrestled 2 matches and got pinned both times. So I always tell people I didn't start off like a blaze of fighter by any means, but by going back to the drawing board again and again and again, I learned more, and just success started coming a little further down the road. So that's how I kind of got involved in wrestling. But in my high school, my freshman year in high school, I read my first Scholastic wrestling magazine, and it talked about weightlifting routines for wrestling. It talked about nutritional programs for amateur wrestling. It talked about the psychological aspect, the mindset, on and on and on, all these techniques and stuff like this, and strategies, and it just kind of blew me away that there was this much more to this sport. So, one of the things was setting a goal, and I set my goal my freshman year to be the very first freshman ever to make the varsity team at my high school, and I'll say I accomplished it, but I accomplished it in a very comical kind of way because I accomplished it at the heavyweight weight class, and here I am weighing all of 155 pounds, and the heavyweight weight class during this time era was unlimited, and you had the likes of people like Chris Taylor, who they never could really weigh him exactly because weight scales at this time period only went up to a maximum of 300 pounds. But they took this Chris Taylor character, he's an Iowa State wrestler, they took him over to a meat scales, a slaughterhouse, and they hung him from the same hook that they would hang a beef from, and they had his weight estimated at 450 pounds.
Big old
this
boy
was while
there.
he was even in high school. Well, again, no reason me telling the stories that I tell people that here I am, I'm weighing all of 155 pounds, but the way that the rules were at this point in time, there were no, as long as I weighed a minimum of 175, well, like today, in today's era, you walk in with your singlet all the way down around your waist, so they check for any kind of skin disease and things of that nature. But way back then, you could weigh in fully dressed, shoes on, coat on, and I had all that on, and I had cans of pop in all of my pockets so that I could weigh the minimum of 175 pounds. And I even tell people, I still to this day remember my very first varsity match. I'm standing beside my high school wrestling coach. I'm bouncing up and down like most wrestlers are doing. I'm bouncing up and down. My opponent is out on the mat. This guy's probably right around 6'6", probably weighs right around 3 1/4. And there's probably not a bad ounce of weight onto him. The referee looks at my coach, and he says, "Coach, where's your heavyweight?" You realize I'm standing right next to him, bouncing up and down like a jumping. My coach has got his arms crossed. He's got his clipboard on his chest and his arms crossed. My coach doesn't even look at me. My coach basically just points his finger towards me, and the referee looks for my coach, where the finger's pointing over to this skinny little thing, bouncing up and down. Wow. The referee then looks right back at my coach and says, "Are you sure, coach?" And my coach should be just nods his head yes. There was no handshake, attaboy, go get him, nothing. It was like the sheep being led to slaughter. The match lasted all of 10 or 12 seconds because that's what took this big behemoth. By the time the referee said, blows the whistle, he comes across there and literally just walks me over, crushes me, physically just crushes me. And it takes him more time to get down onto his hands and knees, throw the half Nelson in just to pin me. So once again, I always tell people, I did not start off in life in a blaze of glory by any means, but I came back and I took my lumps my freshman year and had a losing season, but I came back. More people were entertained by watching me because they saw this little David trying to go out there and slay Goliath, and I did. I had a losing record, but I was 13 and 14, so I did slay at least 13 people.
Wow, and that's great.
And a motivational speak that I tell to a lot of high school wrestling teams and junior high wrestling teams, I'll say that. And when it came down to the conference championship, my coach was really good about calculating out where all the points had to be scored. If Bruce, you had to go out there and get a pin because we needed those extra margin points, and he was really good about doing all that kind of stuff. And he said, this match, this dual meet is going to boil down to the heavyweight contest, and it did. And basically, as I'm being sent off to wrestle the opposing team's heavyweight. Again, another guy that's weighing a much skinnier heavyweight, probably around that 260, 275 pound category. Again, I'm weighing 155. And the whole goal was, coach says, if he pins you, we lose. He says, only thing I got to do is I got to be able to stay off my back. Oh, I mean, literally, this heavyweight, I bridged, and he cross-faced me. He about tore my face out of a cross-face at the cross-face, chicken wing, this, that, the whole 9 yards. All I know is when the buzzer finally rang, somehow I stayed off my back. Yeah, he racked up an incredible score, but there was, like, today's amateur wrestling is known as a tech fall. I mean, once there's a large enough margin of points, they simply just disqualify you because they just look upon you as technical superiority. But back at that time, you actually had to pin a guy in order to get the 6 points, so he just beat me by a major decision, and we won by 1 point. So my whole team is, they're jumping up and down, they're regaling here. The referee raises his hand, and as I'm limping back to my team is jumping all over me like I was some type of a welcome home hero. But at the same token, they were going, they're still celebrating. I walked away and I went back into like a corner all by myself. I mean, I was destroyed physically and emotionally. I was destroyed what this man did to me out there. The only thing I still don't even know to this day how I kept myself, the will to not to have been pinned. And I was crying and stuff like this, and I was angry. And I'm thinking, if that is all my team ever wanted out of me was that, I will show them and I'll show others because I am going to come back and I'm going to get better. So I used it as kind of that learning curve, I used it as that motivational tool to aspire to continue on.
And
so
you did definitely continue on. You ended up becoming a 2-time All-American at Arizona State. And ended up being the original Sun-Kissed kid, which led you to the 1984 Olympic trials.
We would not be having this conversation today had it not been for the 1984 trials, and again being denied. My goal was I was planning on retiring in 1984. I was going to make the Olympic team. I was going to win the gold medal, and I was going to retire on that note. But instead, I was the alternate, and I had to sit up in the bleachers and watch the man ahead of me win the gold medal without giving up a single. Everybody that he wrestled, I had pinned in underneath 1 minute. I was angry. I was because I had been unjustly, I was the alternate. It was the first time that they had ever allowed videotaping of the wrestle-offs. And there was some very high world governing body officials that I showed the tape to, and I just said, just score the match. Just watch the match and score it as you would if this was the first time, and they all scored it in my favor. And yet I was denied. For the next 2 years of my life, from 1984 to 1986, I ruled the world in the sport of amateur wrestling. A lot of people were impressed with what I did by 1994 in the cage fighting world. As I walked in there, and in my opinion, I was already a decade past my prime.
Well, let's talk about 1984 to 1994, because you secured 13 national AAU wrestling championships during those years. You went to Turkey, France, Cuba, Hungary, Japan, all over the globe, and beat anyone that got in your way, it seems.
Well, first off, those first couple of years, no one was even close to me because I had such issues because that match, it was a close match in 1984 that there were no close matches from that point. I punished my opponents to the point that I grinded them. I knew what I was doing, but I ended a few careers in the process. I know how far a shoulder goes. I took a few shoulders out. Knowing that the parameters were there any illegal moves I was doing? No, but I was pretty darn good at what I did. But no, I traveled the world. I traveled wrestling. I say that wrestling has given me almost everything that I have. All my employment, I coached at Arizona State, coached at Michigan State, coached at the Michigan Wrestling Club. You talk about one of the recruiting tools was. Back in '76, yes, I was the original Sunkist kid. The Sunkist wrestling program is a world-renowned program today. It did not exist until I signed with Arizona State University. That was one of the bartering chips that got me there because I always felt I was a better international wrestler, freestyle or Greco-Roman wrestler than I was folk style. Folk style is similar to freestyle, but the United States is the only country that does folk-style wrestling. My older brother and I, Dave, we would travel anywhere on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the wrestling season, whether the event was in Michigan, whether it was down in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, or we simply went over to Ontario. And that's where, even when I got a chance to meet Owen, the first few times that I met with Owen, he says, Danny says, I don't expect you to remember me. He said, but he said, I remember when you watching you wrestling at the Canadian Cup when it was held up in Canada. I mean, not in Canada, but up in the Providence of Ontario. I don't remember where exactly what city it was held into, but I've been to Canada a number of times. But and the funny part is, most other countries do not like Americans, and Americans tend to be targeted quite a bit. So a lot of times when I travel, and people start saying that, they start looking at me and go, well, what's your nationality? I go, well, I'm Canadian. Eh? and I go, well, then I go, what province? I go, Ontario. I go, Kitchener. I go, I can pull out an address, 9 yards. I got a buddy that lives right there, so.
So in 1994, that was really a turning point in the career of Dan Severn, because that's when SEG formed the Ultimate Fighting Championships, and you debuted on UFC 4, Revenge of the Warrior.
1992 is when I jumped into the world of professional wrestling, and then by 1994 I jumped into the cage fighting world. So literally I had a dual professional career simultaneously. I helped the NWA revive itself. There's only 3 promoters left in the world when I first came on board, and by the time I relinquished the belt the first time, 4 years later, there were 35 different promoters inside the United States alone, and I was traveling to other countries, and the belt was very prestigious. Even walking out, Dennis Carzluzzo walked out to the octagon cage with me. He was part of my entourage, and he carried the NWA belt out to the UFC's octagon, and even then the ownership was up in arms because they did not want the association of professional wrestling. So they were pushing. It was like, this is real. And then I said, I had to tell these representatives from the UFC, go, you don't know who I am. You don't know any history about this belt and some of the men that have carried this belt. I said, there's been a lot of very distinguished men original shooters that have carried the strap. I says, rest assured, you will never have a problem with me. I will never disgrace the NW belt. I'll never disgrace the UFC belt. I'll hold them equally in the same type of high regard.
Our associate Sean Bryant is on the line, and Sean?
Dan, you and Ken Shamrock were two of the first guys to make that transition from the world of Greco / professional wrestling to MMA. What did you see as the major differences when you did it in 92 to 94 in your transition to the way like a guy Brock Lesnar did just recently by going to the octagon, back to wrestling, and then now back to the octagon again?
Well, there's a huge difference between Ken and myself. There's a huge difference between Brock Lesnar and myself. One of the first things I'll be quick to point out is I can look at myself in the mirror and simply know that I have achieved all of my success on my own ability. So I'll let you read into that one what you want to, but then I've already outlived I think 5 of my cage fighting opponents and almost 30 of my professional wrestling partners. And none of them were older than I refer to it as lifestyle choices.
Absolutely.
That go along with it. Even in the same Brock Lesnar was lent out on loan there from the WWE to do this match with the UFC. Just to give you an idea, up until 2 weekends ago, Brock Lesnar has a total of 8 matches in his entire life. In 1 year alone, while I was under contract with WWF, I wrestled 8 matches in 1 year, while still doing all my duties for the WWF, and then doing 8 matches. On top of that, and I went undefeated in those 8 matches. But I was the very first professional wrestler on their roster to be unrestricted. There were no confines to me, and that was one of the things that I was really pushed for, because Vince did not realize how old I was until after the contracts were signed, and I'm in the office there with him and Jim Ross. It was slapping each other on the back, handshakes, chuckling me yucks, and through the conversation that would take place, some different dates and time errors were thrown out there. And Vince finally looked at me and goes, "Well, how old are you?" And I go, "I'm 48 at that time." And he looks over at Jim Ross and goes, "Well, who's our oldest rookie ever?" And then Jim Ross points over to me and goes, "Dan is. I don't look my age, nor do I act my age." I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Was UFC the first time you ever got into a cage and fought?
Honestly, I've never been in a fight my entire life, but I've been a competitor. I jumped right into the octagon there. I was the last second fill-in. I only trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day, and I jumped into the octagon. I never trained a single punch. Literally, when I showed up to UFC number 4, they're asking you, like when they put out the tail of the tape, your height, your weight, your athletic background. They said, "Well, what's your martial art?" Because that's what they were used to saying. And they said, "Well, what's your martial art?" I go, "I'm an American wrestler." And then they had never heard that term before. And the guy asked me, goes, "Well, what exactly is that?" I go, "I don't know. I'm just making it up as I go." Because literally, I only trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day. I was with Al Snow and 2 other professional wrestling proteges. They had one old pair of boxing gloves between the 3 of them. That one would. We was at a professional ring. One Al would wear the gloves for a little while. Once he got tired, he'd give them to the next guy. They were trying to punch, kick, do whatever submissions they could do. I just avoided being punch, kick, would clinch him, take him down, slap on amateur wrestling moves, turn them illegal, make them scream or squawk, and that was my training camp. My training camp actually would be almost a joke at today's standards of what they did. And because there's no way no one else could have trained for just 5 days, an hour and a half, and got the same kind of results that I got. And even my very first match out there, I pulled off these belly to back German suplexes that just people convinced they thought I was going to kill this poor guy and these German suplexes, and yet, every professional wrestling promoter just loved it because now they're showing that Dan Severn is showing legitimacy to professional wrestling. On top of that, by pulling out these German suplexes in the middle of a cage match.
And then at UFC 5, you had the Return of the Beast, where you went to the finals and you took out, Oleg Taktarov in the semifinals, and then Dave Beneteau in the finals, and really solidified your reign as the face of UFC at that moment in time there, in its origins and the primordial ooze of what UFC became.
Yep, exactly right. UFC 5 was kind of my pinnacle peak there. I would say that between that, the couple bouts that I had for Ken Shamrock in their clash of super bouts, but then also, today every bout is a super bout was what they look upon it as.
Yeah.
But then, the thing that I think really set me apart was when I ended up winning the Ultimate. That was an event where they brought back various champions, various runner-ups.
That was an amazing pay-per-view fight. My goodness, that was an amazing fight. You took out Paul Varlins, the polar bear. You took out Tank Abbott, and you took out Oleg Taktarov to become the Ultimate champion back in '95.
Yep, but the biggest thing to all that is that I was in that octagon cage for just over 1 hour between those three opponents, and that was in Denver, Colorado, mile-high elevation as well. So
how did you prepare for that?
That was one of my training camps that I actually did. I put in a training camp of 35 days, and was ready to do anything that needed to be done. I was a solidified, no-holds-barred competitor.
And now, an interesting factoid about UFC 9, when you defeated Ken Shamrock for the super fight title, Arizona Republican John McCain had started this huge letter-writing campaign to try to shut down the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And it wasn't actually until the day of the fight that you guys knew for sure you were going to actually get in there, but then you had to go in there and you couldn't even use the closed fist to strike another person in the head. Is that accurate, Dan?
Well, it was that actually took place in Cobo Hall Arena in Detroit, Michigan. It was 5 o'clock. That's when the different representatives came back from the courtroom, and there was all the stuff that was levied down, and then Big John McCarthy was brought into each locker room and gave the participants the rules. And the rules are: you aren't supposed to do this, you aren't supposed to do that, and if you do, you will be warned. And so when he was giving me the rules like this, I said, "Well, John," I go, how many times do you get warned before your doctor kind of points or something like that?" He goes, "7." He goes, "You will be warned." So I thought, okay, I'm going to watch these first couple matches. So I'm watching the very first match, and I'm seeing headbutt after headbutt after headbutt, and I hear warning, warning, warning. Not a single point being deducted. And then I watch the second match. I'm seeing closed fists being thrown. Warning, warning. I'm thinking to myself, well, looks like it's carte blanche here tonight, but I don't think it will be invited back to the state of Michigan anytime soon.
Right before, I think it was in the early 90s, before UFC, just before they started, Vince had this shoot fighting on Raw, and I remember they had this match with Billy Gunn against Butterbean, and then it seemed to be kind of a short-lived deal, and they kind of scrapped that idea. Do you think WWE at the time was serious about having kind of a UFC type thing, or?
Well, the only thing that they did that was close to it was the brawl for all. I mean, that's the only thing that I can really pull out that they have done that even came close to it, and even then, the brawl for all, it failed miserably because people who watch professional wrestling, they're not really there to watch this tough man style type contest. There's a lot of the same demographics, but professional people, they want to be entertained by professional wrestling or by professional wrestlers.
You had mentioned that you graduated from Arizona State. Stu Hart had a lot of guys up from Arizona State, including Wayne Coleman, a.k.a. Superstar Billy Graham, and and John Helton, who wrestled up here, and then he played on the Calgary Stampeders, and there was another chap, Bob Luke, and a few more. Did you know Gary Albright from Nebraska? He wrestled
I knew Gary as an amateur wrestler, but I also, I guess, became reacquainted with him again when I was going over to Japan doing that strong style for the organization, the UWFI. So he was kind of the big killer gaijin American there, and but he was as that suplex machine, because I think Gary was probably pushing. I'll bet close to 400 pounds, maybe even a little bit over 400 pounds. He just a big, barrel-bodied individual, but the crowd seemed like they really enjoyed his character.
I know you were when they had the famous Owen Ken Shamrock dungeon match. Can you just tell us a little bit about participating in that dungeon match?
Well, my role was really easy because all I had to do is just do referee type of duties there. So that's, again, going back to the point where I sat upstairs in the living room for probably the longest time as, the lighting guys, the sound guys, or, Owen and Ken are down there trying to put together a match that's going to make some kind of sense to me. It was just, my part was so easy just to go down there and just do referee type of calling type of things that, as I said, I enjoy the fact that I got to set up a chance to sit in the living room and just listen to Stu just tell stories.
And did Stu salivate over you the whole time and try to convince you to get down on the ground so he could show you something?
No, he just he definitely asked me several questions, stuff like this about my shooter background and stuff like that. And I mean, like I said, I really just kind of just sit back and just listen to what he is. It's kind of like it's a respect thing. I always one thing that always was taught by my parents that if you listen to the elders in the room.
Now on February 24th, 1995, in Erlanger, Kentucky, you defeated Chris Candido to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which you would hold for a remarkable 1,479 days over 4 years, which is still the third longest reign in that title's history. And I'm kind of curious to know how did you end up in that position, other than, of course, you're the greatest professional wrestler of that era?
Honestly, I don't know, because I know that originally the idea came about from Dennis Carluzzo, but also, that took place down with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Jim Cornette. I mean, Jim Cornette's been he's been kind of a big aspect of my life on 3 different occasions. When I was working with the WWF, when I went down to Erlanger, Kentucky, and the strap was put onto me, and then again even with his operation back east, when he was doing the strong style amateur professional wrestling there once again. But even Jim actually even wrote the foreword for my book, and it was I was definitely very touched by all the words that he said there.
And where can folks find that book at, Dan?
Just by going to my website. All of my social media is laid out there, so they know how to get to the Facebook pages. They know how to, and that's where it is really being promoted right now. Is through Facebook. It is only out on ebook right now. In the ebook category already, it's the #1 bestseller.
Amazing!
No
That's
time
great.
at all, and without really much promotion type aspect. So now, obviously, I'm doing more interviews, bringing attention to the book. But I think the unique aspect of the title, I did not come up with the title. I had half the ideas of the title. The gentleman that basically helped organize and co-write the book itself, his name is Ian Douglas, and he's really up on a lot of the social media, the terms of the day. There was a lot of people talking about, keeping it real, keeping things transparent, and through the series of interviews, he says, you are He says, you're the realest guy I've ever met in my life. He says, you pull no punches. I tell people, I go, I'm so honest. I'm brutally honest. You may not like to have your face wallered into the truth at times. That's how blunt I am on some aspects. I'm not very politically correct. Let's put it that way. I don't want someone that's going to drive to my place simply to walk on a treadmill. I don't need that type of clientele. I'm looking for people that aspire to make a difference in their life. They want to be professional wrestlers. They want to be cage fighters. They want to be successful wrestlers. I have actually done a lot more recently, more talks at various senior homes. Because once you hit 50 years of age, your welcome card comes out there, and they're like, welcome to becoming a senior citizen. The AARP, they know all about that, and they send you that birthday card, and now you qualify for all this kind of new things. I can get discounts on hotels, discounts on meals and things of that nature, which almost seems like ironic, but I am talking to seniors, and then they start saying, well, what do you know about being a senior, stuff like this, and then they realize I'm older than some of them. I hate the vanity because I still color my hair, because I still do a lot of public appearances. I still am in the public sector, so I color my hair. I'll just say I'm glad I have hair to color in a process.
Do you still have your mustache, Dan?
Well, the mustache has been colored for many years right there, but it's just kind of like it's like I have probably have had more articles written about my mustache than I'll bet some people have had written about their careers.
Have you and Don Fry
ever? In the month of November, I'll have interview after interview, and they're like, okay, Don Fry or Dan Severn, who has got the better mustache?
Have you two ever gotten into a shoot fight over whose mustache is better?
I told him, I said we should invent, in the Hispanic culture where a mask versus match, a mask versus mask.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. I go, Don, you and I need to we'll recreate this mustache versus mustache match, and we'll get like Gillette, Schick, a few of these other razor blades / shaving cream companies on board, and then we'll laugh all the way to the bank as to whoever has to lose their mustache that night.
Hey, I bet Vince would book that too.
You get the right type of charity hooked to it. I'm sure Don or I would probably would pony up or something like that. I always tell people that I've only really retired from one industry, and that is the world of mixed martial arts. But I retired with a clause. That clause being is that if Ken Shamrock or Horace Gracie were to ever to step up to the plate, I would seriously contemplate coming back out. I don't have any axe to grind with anybody else, and both of them have been making more noise lately. And when I was in Las Vegas last weekend, I told every person that came up to me, it made me feel good to walk out there for the fans, just to walk out there and to see all the other fighters. They all had their separate table. I had my separate table, but to see that my line was probably 3 times the length of any other guy, it made me feel good to walk on out there. And I probably 4 or 5 different times I had different UFC representatives come up to me and they say, Dan, can you do it faster? Can you sign or take a picture and just like a conveyor belt, send people along the way? And I go, I could, but I won't.
Okay.
I said, these people pay good money to come up here to see me, and I go, when it comes time that you guys need to shut the line down, you shut it down at the very end of the line, and I go, what? You can leave, and I will stay here until the last person has been serviced. And then literally I stayed there the entire time, but the point I'm actually getting to is, as each person came up there, they couldn't believe that I stayed there, because as I said, everybody else, once their time was done, I mean, they couldn't wait to get out there, and I was the only guy that stayed there that whole duration. And it meant a lot to them that I did that. But I used to do that even when I worked for the WWF. A couple hours before the show, I would always go outside, because and by the back of the building, a lot of the fans, the really hardcore fans, they would always gather around the fenced area. And I would walk out there and I would talk to them. I would shake hands. I'd sign autographs and take pictures. And they'd ask me, well, can you go get The Undertaker? Can you go get a Stone Cold Steve Austin? Can you go get this guy? Can you go get that guy? I go, no. I said, and they're like, well, why are you out here? I said, well, who pays my bills? Well, they're like, well, Vince McMahon pays your bills. I go, no. I said, look around you. Who pays my salary? I said, if you folks did not show up to this arena and buy the tickets, do you think Vince McMahon cares about me at all? And that's the way it is in that industry.
I'd heard nothing but very good things about Dan from my brother Owen and my brother Brett. They both had the utmost respect, and a lot of the wrestlers that I knew in the WWE all had nothing but nice things to say about Dan, and certainly everything they said was true. Very knowledgeable, articulate, and well-versed in all aspects. And Dan reminds me so much of the guys that my dad used to know and have the utmost respect for back in the day, the guys that had sort of amateur backgrounds and protected the integrity of the business and were very proud.
Can I ask Dan a question here real quick about his time in WWF? And there is a story out there that he left over creative differences because they wanted to put a 666 on his forehead, I guess, and have him join The Undertaker or something. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, I mean, in essence, the creative team was pitching me this idea because as a cycle of a professional wrestler, you're going to go from one type of character, from either face type of character, good guy, to a heel type of character, bad guy, and back again. So I was kind of known as kind of basically a baby face, kind of just a no nonsense type of a baby face. I wore the same costume that I wore in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. And then all of a sudden they're pitching me this idea of putting 666 across my forehead and being an Undertaker disciple. And as they're just pitching this idea, I bang my hands up like making a timeout tee, and I blow the little whistle there going, I go, guys, timeout, not going to happen. I go, I live in small town USA. I am not going to have any repercussions to my family, nor to my businesses, nor to myself. You'd be surprised how many people actually take stock into this. I had some very preconceived ideas. So I guess I didn't set all that well with the creative there, and all of a sudden, like, well, Dan, we could use you poorly. I go, what does that mean? Oh, we could have you start losing matches. I go, yeah, you could ask me if I will do the honors for somebody. But where does it say anywhere in that contract, I have to do the job for anybody? I said, what do you think will happen if I walk into your your fantasy world, and I turn fantasy into reality? How many of your so-called stars you think stand a chance against me? It even crossed my mind at that point in time because the Royal Rumble was coming up, and you basically know that whatever you may go out there as the 5th or 6th person, but you might be thrown out as the 50th or 60th person somewhere. You just know what's going to happen on. It even crossed my mind. I go, I wonder if I should contact Ted Turner or Eric Bischoff, because WCW was running at the same time. They're still viable commodities. To say, hey, Eric Bischoff, Ted Turner, what's it worth to you guys in WCW? When it's time for Dan Severn to exit the ring, Dan Severn turns fantasy into reality. This is live. It's a live pay-per-view. Based on sheer numbers, they'll eventually get me out of that ring, but they haven't got me out of that arena. Now, it might have been tough to get a job in the industry, but at the same time, maybe not. But to me, it's like, Vince and the WWF company did not know what they had when they had me. In the beginning, they used me quite strong, as a matter of fact. But then I think they realized they had no type of control mechanisms over me because I was non-exclusive. Still to this day, I think I'm the only non-exclusive wrestler ever. I could work for anyone, including I was working for the NWA, 35 different promoters there. But even then, the NWA want to be exclusive to them. I go, does that mean you're going to pay me to sit home? I go, if you guys don't have, if I've got an opportunity to work for another promotion, and you guys don't have nothing going on that weekend, I should be allowed to go on off. So I've been non-exclusive my entire life. But and at the same token, I am that wrestler that is cut from that cloth of days gone by. My word and my handshake means more than what most guys will ever have, and documentation after documentation, sealed, signed, and delivered. But that is my upbringing.
And you do really represent the roots of wrestling and what wrestling once was in this nation. And it shocks me that the largest wrestling company in the world, the WWF, couldn't figure out how to use that to their advantage. Where you had all this spectacle going on.
There for the creative team, and he even would say, Dan goes, these creative guys, they don't have a clue what to do. He goes, you're the greatest thing ever to hit wrestling because you're a professional wrestler who can wrestle. You're not going to go out there just pose and flex and cut a promo. But I look at it as it's simply their loss. Life moved down for me, and I've done just fine for myself.
To go back to when you won the NWA World Championship a second time from Hashimoto over in Japan, what happened with TNA where you were supposed to be on the inaugural pay-per-view? You know, people say that you no-showed the show or whatever. What was the real deal with that?
Yeah, I'm glad you said the real deal because that was all bullshit that I no-showed them. I used to put my schedule up on my website just so that people would actually know when I was available for bookings and stuff like that. Yeah. And TNA, basically themselves, they were running a Wednesday night pay-per-view. And their sales were really bad. This was like the very first pay-per-view coming up, and they thought that they would spice it up by doing an NWA title defense right out of the get-go. They'll contact me. I go, well, I can't. I said, I have a commitment for the same date. I'm to be in Texas. I'll be climbing into a cage in Texas that night. And they put the pressure on me to the point they said, well, we're just going to strip you of that belt. Now, this is one of those times where I don't say too often. If I was in hindsight, if I went to relive that moment once again, I would have simply said, sure. You said whoever you think can take it from me, is what I should have said. But at the same token, they had me so mad, I go, I don't want to be your champion in the first place here now. I go, if that's as little as you think of this belt and what it represents, you can just have it back. Something I held in a great deal of prestige. At the end, it was kind of like bittersweet. That it was, I was being used, though. I mean, I know it's a business, but in the fact that I was used to go over to Japan, Hashimoto wasn't going to drop the strap to anybody, but he was willing to drop the strap to me. As I said, I was going over there to do a tag team match, and in the course of the fight, a tag team match gets dropped to a single, gets dropped to a title defense, to a I'm going to be bringing the strap in on back. I bring the strap on back, and a couple months later, being stripped of it. But I look this way. In all due respect, I am still the NWA champion because I never lost it to anybody. They stripped it from me.
It shocks me that would be the behavior after you helped try to bring some legitimacy back to their title after it was abused so thoroughly. That they would just toss you to the side so quickly over that.
I've actually talked to, I can't think of the gentleman's name here right now, the current president of the NWA, because I'm still in better shape than probably 3/4 of the locker room. That doesn't say much about those locker rooms, but I said that I could probably go one more short run with the belt, get a lot more prestige once again, visually, and especially with all the aspects of social media here right now, because more than likely somewhere in the next, let's say, 6 to 8 months, I will probably do one more cage match, legitimate cage match, with either Ken Shamrock or Hoist Gracie, preferably both.
What happened with you and Tank Abbott on March 20th? I thought you guys were going to get it together there at
that was
UR
again,
Fight.
the Tank Abbott, he was never, he should have never been in the equation in the first place. I said that I would only come out of retirement for basically one of three people, and the three people was a Mark Coleman, a Ken Shamrock, and a Hoist Gracie. Right in order is what I said. But Mark Coleman had a couple artificial hip replacements. He's had some real health issues. Mark's off the list. The other two viable candidates were Ken Shamrock and Hoist Gracie.
What about Randy Couture?
No, because I've had history with these other two guys. I only wanted to do a match. One more match was one of those two guys because I have very few losses. I have very few losses in my career. And if you look at some of the people that I've lost to, as I made the comment before, I take a great deal of pride in the fact that I can look at myself in the mirror and know that I have achieved all my success on my own ability. What I mean by saying that is I am lifetime chemical free. I have freakish genes in me in the first place. If I was to do a couple cycles of whatever here, I'd probably weigh 3 1/4, ripped at about 6% body fat. But I always despise that hypocritical athlete. Because I do a lot of speaking engagements with younger people, young athletes, I talk about the importance of education. Despise that hypocritical athlete that would go in and say, yo, don't do drugs, stay in school, and then they're busted a week later with this, that, or something else. If I would have a lot more respect for them if they simply say, do as I say and not as I did. I did this route. And sure, I got away with it for a while here, but on the flip side here now, look what it did to me. And then you one of you guys, gentlemen, there brought up a great name there, Billy Graham Superstar, who at one point in time was at the pinnacle peak, the champ of all champions there. But now he's doing his speaking engagement where he's telling young people exactly that, not to do steroids, not to do this, that, and all that, because look what it has done to him. So again, I have a lot more respect for someone that at least they're coming clean with something. Young people are so impressionable about what's it going to take to become successful in this, that, or something else.
Pierre from Victoria, British Columbia, you said, can you ask Dan how he got the name The Beast?
The ring name The Beast came from a legendary football player by the name of Jim Brown of the Cleveland Browns. He was one of the play-by-play commentators for the UFC for probably, I'll say, a half a dozen shows. And when in his words, he said, when I first met you, Dan, he goes, I didn't think that much of you because here you show up, out of all these fighters, you're the only guy that shows up wearing a sports jacket and a tie. All the other guys were wearing tank tops, sweatshirts, muscle garb, showing off their big bulging muscles, tattoos, and piercings and things of nature. Here I show up looking like someone's sports agent. and I'm wearing glasses because I wear glasses for distance. He goes, you remind me of Clark Kent, a.k.a. Superman. You take your glasses off, you take your sports jacket off, and dun, 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 he says, you transform into this wild, crazy fighter out there. He says, I'd never seen such a transition. He goes, how do you turn it on like that? And I'm thinking Jim Brown has asked me a question like that. It just made me kind of, just kind of giddy there in the sense that, I watched him when I was in junior high, and he was, in my opinion, was one of the most punishing running backs in the history of the game of football. And in his closing comments from UFC number 4 to UFC number 5, he said something to the effect of, when Dan Severn first came on the scene, he was very technical. He was very clinical. He was just a wrestler. But now he's so much more aggressive. The way he's striking, he's kneeing, he's elbowing, he's much like an animal. but more like a beast. And that's where Dan the Beast Severn came from, was from Jim Brown. With that said, the beast has a lot of negative connotations. Anyone that knows me knows I'm not a negative person whatsoever. So I had to come up with something that stood for the beast. The word THE stands for Dan Severn. I'm a teacher, I'm a humanitarian, and I'm an educator. My message to young people is beast. To believe in yourself, to educate yourself, to adjust your everyday attitude, to study hard, and then to teach others. You can't take it with you, so why don't you teach others how to do it?
If you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler, or you're interested in climbing in a cage to fight another man, I highly suggest you check out Dan the Beast Severn at dansevern.com or Michigan Sports Camps on Facebook.
How about if I recite to you a poem that I wrote 20-some years ago? And I know it's kind of hard to believe that a wrestler, a cage fighter, has written poetry. And rest assured, it's no roses are red, violets are blue. I'm going to pummel you all through. It won't be something like that. But I wrote this while flying back from Tokyo one night. And again, I have never written a poem before, unless it was mandatory, and that would have been in college. For some reason, while flying back from Tokyo one night, I had all these little rhyming little lines going through my mind. I pulled out the barf bag, and literally within probably 15 minutes, I had it written out, and I'm like going, wow, that's good. Divine intervention didn't come from me, it came from somebody else. But my life has been wrestling. The name of the poem is called The Match Promise. And it really depicts amateur wrestling, but it's titled The Match Promise. And again, I'm just going off the top of my head, and this is how it goes. Before I walk onto the mat, I pause a moment to reflect on back. From where I came, it wasn't much, but where I'm headed, I cannot be touched. These words I speak, they are the same. Speak them I must, they're part of my game. I must promise to do my very best to put my opponent to the ultimate test. To rise above all that he may do, I will see the match all the way through. Win or lose is not the score. Knowing I did my best, this means more. I will shoot and defend with all my might to let my opponent know he's in for a fight. One point at a time, that is what I'll take. Relentless I'll be, no mistakes I'll make. I've worked too hard to settle for less. In the heat of the battle, I can handle the stress. When the whistle blows, the match is done. The ref raises my arm because I have won. I am not average, not like the rest. I will rise above and become the best. It is my goal to reach the top, and no matter what, I will not stop.